The Kinmen controversy continues as Taiwan releases a preliminary report on the incident. Taiwan's Labour Minister draws fire for comments about migrant workers from India. Rents in Taiwan are on the rise, but renters are getting less for their money.
当然是越小间的就是涨越多，超过50%的，亲朋好友是说快负担不起。
Plus, Taiwan brings its seeds to farmers in Southeast Asia. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Reese Ayres. Tensions between China and Taiwan are still high over the fatal capsizing of a Chinese fishing boat. Taiwan officials have delivered a report to the legislators with their version of events, but it leaves more questions than answers. Louise Watt has been following developments from Taipei. Louise, what's the latest?
Well, opposition lawmakers say it's a fact that a Taiwanese Coast Guard vessel hit the Chinese fishing boat. But the government's position, which was again restated today in the legislature, was that no deliberate collision occurred. Now, what we do know is that almost 3 weeks ago now, a Taiwanese Coast Guard vessel chased a Chinese boat that was close to Kinmen. These are Taiwanese islands, but they're just off the Chinese coast, and it's an area that Taiwan has restricted for military purposes. The Chinese fishing boat fled, and it ended up capsizing, and 2 of the 4 fishermen died. Now, as well as the question of did the Taiwanese Coast Guard vessel purposefully collide with the fishing boat, opposition lawmakers today in the legislature raised the issue of there was no recording of the incident, and they seized on this. Now, the authorities say there was no recording because the personnel on board the Coast Guard vessel were too busy trying to maintain the balance of the ship to pick up a video camera and record what was going on. But they said to address this in the future, they will procure 24-hour video surveillance systems. So if another incident occurs, they will have recorded evidence. But as there was no recording of this incident, there's still a lot of uncertainty as to what actually happened.
And Louise, how is China likely to react to today's report to Taiwan's legislature?
Well, China has already blamed Taiwan's ruling party for the 2 deaths, and it's stepped up patrols around Kinmen, which has also raised tensions. But I think for now, China is unlikely to react further. It has a lot on its plate, including a slowing economy and mounting local government debt. And this week is actually the most important week on the political calendar for Beijing. It's when its annual legislature holds its once-a-year meeting in Beijing, and thousands of delegates will be meeting there. But in a break from tradition, this afternoon it was announced that the Chinese premier will not be holding his customary press conference at the close of the session. Now, this press conference is something that has happened every year since 1993. It's the only time when foreign journalists get a chance to ask questions of the Chinese premier. And the fact that it's not happening is quite significant, and I think it's another sign of the increasing inaccessibility of the Chinese leadership. It's harder for journalists and foreign governments to know what they're thinking.
That was Louise Watt reporting from Taipei. Taiwan's Navy is expected to add 2 more stealth ships to its fleet by the end of the month. The domestically made Tuojiang-class corvettes are part of the country's shift to smaller, more agile warships. They're equipped with anti-ship missiles and are used to defend Taiwan's coast. This month's deliveries will complete the first batch of 6 corvettes. Taiwan plans to build 11 of the ships by 2026. Taiwan's Labour Minister is under fire after making racially charged comments about migrant workers Taiwan plans to bring from India. In a recent televised appearance, Labour Minister Ming-chun discussed an agreement signed earlier this month allowing Indian migrant workers to come to Taiwan. She pointed to skin colour and cultural characteristics as reasons for targeting workers from northeast India.
我们其实外交部有帮我们评估了哈，我们可能一开始会先引进东北、印度东北那边的哈，因为第一个不管在肤色、饮食习惯哈，都跟我们比较相近。再来，那边大部分都基督教，哈，然后不管在这个制造、营造或农业方面，都是他们擅长的强项。
To learn more about how Taiwan's Indian community is responding to these comments, reporter Chris Gorin spoke with Dr. Priya Purswaney, a translator and consultant based in Taipei.
So, first of all, what has been the reaction to the Labor Minister's comments among the Indian community in Taiwan?
A little bit surprised, slightly shocked. It was not so we kind of knew that that might be the area where Taiwan would prefer to get workers from, the migrant workers, but we didn't expect it to be said in such plain terms. That's something that tends to happen in Taiwan. I think people are not as sensitive to what is politically correct, to these kind of issues that are internationally getting a lot of attention these days. And because in the past few months, there have been some negative comments about the whole migrant worker MOU that's happening between India and Taiwan. And there have been some voices in Taiwan society saying that, oh, it's going to cause problem because they look different and they eat different and because of language and so on. So I think her statement was kind of like in response to that line of questioning.
You've been living in Taiwan for 37 years now, and it seems like you have a good sense of what the mood is like in Taiwan. From your perspective, have Taiwanese people also been reacting with the same kind of shock to this story that the Indian community has?
Like I said, usually these kind of comments are fairly common in society here. Like people are named Xiao Bai, Xiao Hei. It's a common thing to casually refer to someone's skin color. So it's not taken so much as a racist remark here, I feel. So I think the response among the Taiwanese, like the locals, hasn't been, it's no big deal. Like she was just answering questions that she was asked. But the response among foreigners in Taiwan is actually more at a higher level than among the local Taiwanese.
Is there some context that an international audience should understand that would make the minister's comments seem less discriminatory than they appear to be on the surface?
I think it was an innocent remark from her. I don't feel that she meant any harm or she meant to be racist or discriminatory. It might be because of certain concerns that have been raised among the Taiwanese public due to like worries that they have about Indian migrant workers coming to Taiwan. And that might be the reason why she brought this issue up. On the Taiwanese side, I feel that generally Taiwanese society needs to be more inclusive and open-minded about migrant workers in general, not just those from India, but wherever they come from.
That was reporter Chris Gorin speaking to translator and consultant Priya Purswaney. Rent in Taiwan is going up, but the average size of housing units is getting smaller. It's just the latest example of the cost of living crisis in the country. Tiffany Wong has the story.
Looking for a place to stay. It's a tough decision for the 3 million people in Taiwan who rent, especially as the cost of living increases. New government statistics show that the 2023 rental index reached a record high of 103.5, meaning that the financial burden for renters is increasing. Renters say they feel that burden already.
当然是越小间的就是涨越多，超过50%的亲朋好友是说快负担不起。
我们的房东没涨啊，但是我有一直在看啊，是真的涨蛮多的，大概涨了我觉得两三成有。
Not only that, but the average size of rentals has also decreased as housing in popular districts becomes harder to come by. Now, property experts say that these smaller dwellings will become more popular as housing agencies try to accommodate the demand, but will also drive up prices.
在未来，因为租金不断往上走的关系，因为这种小面积的产品可能会越来越受欢迎，但是租屋族的生活空间也就会被压缩。
Now, as the government cracks down on illegal rentals, more landlords may not be able to evade rental taxes anymore, and those burdens might also fall on renters to bear the brunt of the costs. And with rentals trending smaller, tenants will be getting less bang for their buck. Patrick Chen and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is home to one of the largest collections of vegetable seeds on the planet. Now, the World Vegetable Center is sharing this bounty with Southeast Asian farmers. As Rick Glauert reports, it's part of Taiwan's plan to boost its economic resilience in the face of an ever more aggressive China.
On more than 100 acres of fertile farmland in southern Taiwan, the World Vegetable Center is cultivating seeds to send to farmers overseas.
We give more diversity to communities, we give them more choices to grow crops, we give them more resilience.
There are seeds here from more than 180 species of vegetables, including eggplants and okra. From here, they're sent to 14 Southeast Asian countries. It's a project backed by Taiwan's foreign ministry as it seeks to strengthen ties with its neighbours. The World Vegetable Center houses one of the largest collections of seeds on the planet, and these varieties of vegetables originate from Southeast Asia, where they have since fallen out of use. The centre now wants to repatriate and reintroduce crops like these to those countries to boost local agriculture. Taiwan hopes these seeds can help farmers in the region as they adapt to a changing climate. It's part of the government's new southbound policy that aims to lessen Taiwan's economic reliance on China by increasing its ties with Asia-Pacific countries. Taipei accuses Beijing of using economic coercion to push its claims of sovereignty over Taiwan. China has recently banned imports of certain types of Taiwan fruit and fish. But officials in Taipei hope new markets in Southeast Asia can replace the China trade while also helping those countries.
Taiwan has a lot of cutting-edge technology, and Taiwan has many experts in, the discipline, the research discipline in agriculture. I believe that, working with Taiwanese research organization will help us.
There are clear signs that Taiwan's new southbound policy is bearing fruit. In 2023, Taiwan investment in Southeast Asian countries surpassed that of China. This effort to help farmers in the region, a core part of cultivating ties and growing Taiwan's economic independence. Klein Wang and Rick Glauert in Tainan for TaiwanPlus.
The US and South Korea are carrying out their largest joint military exercises known as Freedom Shield. The drills will simulate how the two countries can work together to maintain security on the Korean peninsula. For more on their significance, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Jessica Taylor, a security analyst with the Atlantic Council.
Well, Jessica, I want to first ask you about the significance, about the timing of these drills. This Freedom Shield exercise between the United States and South Korea, why are these drills important right now?
Well, this comes at a time where there's been efforts for the alliance to get back to its regular scheduled exercises. And it really comes at a time when we're anticipating for there to be more provocations from North Korea. It's very significant also because it's the first time that the exercise is going on at this scale since North Korea has said that it's leaving the Inter-Korean CMA. It also comes at a time when the South Korea and the U.S. are trying to increase their cooperation on nuclear threats. And it also comes at a time where South Korea has deployed its a satellite, a surveillance satellite, and there's anticipation or expectation that North Korea, or there's debate whether North Korea's satellite that it launched, whether that really is able to see into South Korea. But I think the U.S.-ROC alliance is really just trying to get back to its regularly scheduled exercises to increase deterrence and to strengthen public reassurance.
Are there any concerns that after these exercises, we're going to see a response or some kind of reaction from North Korea?
I think there is a concern that we will see possibly more missile launches, and in particular missile launches that are trying to display that they have the ability to miniaturize a warhead, or display they have the ability to be able to strike the United States. There's concern that there might be missile launch or artillery fire that either comes in the vicinity of the inter-Korean border, whether it's maritime or land border. There's also concern that we might return back to these launches that are over Japan that do pose it like a threat to Japanese citizens. So we're pretty much all seemingly holding our breath to see where things are headed. And really, it's going to be up to the ROK-US alliance to ascertain what type of response a particular provocation really mandates, what type of response the alliance will have.
And these drills are supposed to keep peace and security on the Korean Peninsula. But with what we're seeing from reaction from the North Korean side, is this working?
I think it actually is. I actually more so fault that we had a pause in those exercises to begin with. And that's why it seems like there's a ratcheting up of exercises, because there was a pause. One thing that we all have to remember is that all militaries train. North Korea didn't stop its military training, even when we scaled back our own. But it's normal for all militaries to train. There's a difference between military training and shows of force, though. And that is where I think the ROK-US alliance has to be really careful, because they want to make sure they're maintaining military readiness, but that readiness is aimed at bolstering deterrence and public reassurance, not necessarily being seen as a punishment to North Korea.
That was Jessica Taylor, a security analyst with the Atlantic Council, speaking to our reporter Jaime Ocon. Protesters are demonstrating outside of the ASEAN-Australia summit in Melbourne, demanding support for democracy in Myanmar. 9 Southeast Asian leaders will attend the summit. The protesters are appealing to ASEAN and Australia to recognise Myanmar's elected government, which was ousted by a military coup in 2021.
We are here to urge and appeal to ASEAN countries to support the Myanmar people who are suffering from dictatorship more than 70 years now.
Coming up after the break, efforts to find the missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 may soon be renewed.
I'm on top of the world. It's what we wanted to hear, and we hoped for that for a very long time.
At Connected, we believe in the power of dialogue. Taipei 101 station. It's not just about the headlines, it's about finding common ground. Join the conversation.
Connected with Divya Gopalan on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. US Vice President Kamala Harris has called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
And given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table. This will get the hostages out and get a significant amount of aid in.
Harris urged Hamas to accept the ceasefire deal and pressed Israel to allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza. Harris is scheduled to meet an official from Israel's war cabinet on Monday to discuss the deal. Pressure for a ceasefire has intensified since Israeli soldiers opened fire on a group of Palestinians waiting for aid, killing over 100 people. A delegation from Hamas is currently in Egypt for negotiations, which Israel is boycotting. Harris is one of few senior leaders of the US to call for a ceasefire, as President Joe Biden faces mounting criticism for his support of Israel. South Korea says it will suspend the medical licenses of over 7,000 trainee doctors after they refused to end a 2-week-long walkout.
정부의 업무 개시 명령을 위반하면 최소 3개월의 면허 정지 처분이 불가피합니다. 3개월 면허정지 처분을 받게 되면 전공의 수련 기간을 충족하지 못하게 되므로 전문의 자격 취득 시기가 1년 이상 늦춰지게 됩니다.
The government says it will also begin inspecting hospitals as it seeks to bring legal action against the doctors. Around 9,000 residents and intern doctors walked off the job on February 20th. They are protesting government plans to increase medical school admissions. Authorities say the move is needed to accommodate South Korea's aging society, but the doctors argue the government should first address salaries and working conditions. A renewed search for missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 could soon be underway. The Malaysian government made the announcement at a remembrance event marking 10 years since the disappearance of the plane and the 239 people on board. Rosie Greninger reports.
A memorial on the outskirts of Kuala Lumpur as the 10th anniversary of the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 approaches. These families who had loved ones on board the flight have long pushed for another search for the plane to find answers. And now there's new hope, with the Malaysian government announcing they are in talks with a US company to renew the hunt.
They are ready and they have finalized the proposal, and we are ready to discuss the proposal. No reluctance. As I've mentioned numerous times, as far as Malaysian government is concerned, we are committed to that search, and the search must go on.
Texas-based marine robotics company Ocean Infinity has been invited to Malaysia to present new technology that they say can help find the plane's final resting place, proposing a no-find, no-fee basis for the mission. MH370's disappearance is one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries. On March 8, 2014, the plane with 239 people on board was due to fly to Beijing. But shortly after takeoff from Malaysian capital Kuala Lumpur, it vanished from radars. Satellite data days later showed the plane deviated from its path for several hours, and the flight was assumed lost with no survivors.
That MH370 flew along the southern corridor, and that its last position was in the middle of the Indian Ocean, west of Perth.
No trace of the aircraft's main body or any passengers were found in an extensive multinational government search that ended in 2017. But when a few fragments from the plane washed up on East African shores later that year, it prompted Ocean Infinity to conduct another search, which also found no clues. The potential of a new search is a welcome development for families who haven't had any news since the failed search in 2018.
I'm on top of the world. You know, it's what we wanted to hear, and we hoped for that for a very long time. And he's made a lot of promises to us in the fact that he will help find the plane, and there's no two ways about it. So I'm so thankful.
If Ocean Infinity's new evidence is credible, the Transport Minister says he will seek Cabinet approval to sign a new contract to resume the search and encourage Australia to cooperate. These families have accepted the loss of their loved ones on board the flight, but they believe locating the plane's wreckage is key to improving aviation industry safety and will also bring them closure after waiting a very difficult 10 years for answers. Devon Tsai and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
In the Philippines' capital of Manila, one man has come up with a novel way to tackle his country's poor record on education. Bryn Thomas has this story.
This is Manila native and book lover Hernando Guanlao, and this is its library. Dubbed the Reading Club 2000, it faces the street he lives on in the Philippines' capital. That's because the large collection of used and donated books is open to the public. Anyone who sees something they like is free to take it home.
Naging misyon ay pamigay ng mga aklat na pinaglumaan ng ibang mga nagbabasa nang walang bayad, libre po ito. At maitulak ang ating edukasyon sa literatura. Gamit sa K-12.
Guanlao sees this as his life's calling, and it's a project much needed in the Philippines, where poverty levels are high, books are expensive, and access to quality education is low. According to an assessment by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the country's math, science, and reading scores are some of the lowest in the world. Reading Club 2000 started over 20 years ago with only 50 books, but it's grown significantly since then, thanks to donations from supporters. The library now contains a multitude of titles aimed at both budding bookworms and seasoned readers. Everything from fictional novels and autobiographies to spiritual books in various editions. For Guanlao, now in his 70s, there's nothing he'd rather be doing than running the library.
Talaga namang walang kalaban ng ginagawa ko na masaya. May fulfillment ba? Bilang dumadaan sa akin ang bagay na hindi naman mahirap, hindi naman ako taong gobyerno para dumaan sa akin, no? Pero parang ako ang naging tulay para makarating ang mga ganung bagay.
And for the community, the shelves of free books are both a refuge and a way to help improve the lives of its young people. Howard Chang, Jeremy Olivier, and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, let's visit the Hundertwasser House in Vienna. It's finally reopening to the public after almost 9 months of renovations. I'm Rhys Ayres, take care, and we'll see you next time.